Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the first video that I am making officially while talking about music and art in general. I wanted to keep the first video to be pretty simple. I wanted to talk about a little deeper things also in the future. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe. So in the future, you'll see, I think, much more interesting videos that talk about very deep subjects into music and art in general. So for this first video, I actually had a very simple idea, and the reason why I wanted to make it was because this is the kind of video that I needed before I committed to studying, to not only studying, but also traveling abroad to a different country and studying music there. And the subject, as you can tell from the title, is regarding should you study in a university, or specifically, should you study music in a university? And in this video, I'm going to mention three different types of educations that you can have in music, and my recommendations, the questions that I would do, I would have to the teachers and to the responsible people at the university that you're applying to. It is important to mention that my experience, it came from a Western. I studied in Germany. So my experience is a Western musical standard. However, in your country, wherever you want to study, it's going to be very, very different. But I feel like there's a lot of basic stuff that I'm going to go over that will definitely make sense wherever you are. So even though some of the things that I'm going to say are going to be very European oriented, very West European oriented, I guess, let's say, it's much, I'm also going to mention stuff that can suit you wherever you are, even if you are somewhere very, very far away in the world. To start out and talk about this subject, I would like to first tell you where I came from. So I am Palestinian Jordanian. I studied the piano, and I had a fascination towards the idea of documentation, paper documentation of music. And that's why I studied composition in Europe. I love the idea of writing something onto paper and documenting it for future people to either look at it, analyze it, or play it. So this is my perspective, this is who I am. Now let's get into the actual subject of the video. In this video, I will mention three different types of educations, and if you should do them or consider to study them in a bachelor, master degree, or maybe even PhD. The first subject that I wrote down is theoretical subjects, and theoretical subjects go like this. They are either theory, studying musical theory. By the way, musical theory, it's a very stupid term. People, when they say music theory in the West with English, when they speaking in English, they mention European musical theory. In different countries, musical theory is different because the way they approach music is different. So in Europe, they tend to put a lot of effort into explaining harmony, and there is harmony plays a massive role in the entirety of European music. And when you go to, for example, an Arabian university, you're going to be taught much different things. You might not even learn about harmony at all if you're in certain instances. And then in other instances, you might just learn a little bit. It depends, yeah. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in a second, but let's mention the other ones. There's also a musical history. Again, it's also influenced by where you are. They're gonna mention stuff that is closer to you. So they're gonna, if you're living in Jordan, you're going to the, I don't know, Jordanian University. They will most probably talk about things that are close to the area, to Jordan. Um, so yeah, the next one is musical philosophy and aesthetics. This is something that you can find at certain universities. This is actually pretty hard to find. It's a subject that talks about just the general philosophy of first, why does music exist? Why do we make it? What are the components of music? And what do those components mean? And in what way could you manipulate them as a composer to reach a specific emotion or ideology? And this is not easy to find. Most of the time, if you learn it, you are learning it as just a subject part of your entire studies. Especially as a composer, you will have that this type of subject. There are also other theoretical subjects, but the question is, should you study it or not? And the answer to this is, I feel like, is a little simple in comparison to the other ones. Is generally a yes. If you have interest, for example, in musical theory, you want to study musical theory, the answer is yes. But look at what you are interested in. So let's say you have no interest at all in anything that has to do with harmony, then please just don't study it in Europe. Yeah, if you have interest in something like that, you will struggle a lot in Europe. If you have more interest towards, like, for example, melody or tuning or microtonality, definitely not Europe. There are other areas. There are also specific universities in Europe, yes, I have to give you that, that focuses a little more on these other niche subjects. But majority of the time, especially when it comes to bachelor or master degree, you will not find the information that you need, the stuff that you need, the things that interest you. So um, this would be my recommendation. And and I also wanted to add a part of this video, by the way, talking about, like, what should you ask the university before you go there or before you commit yourself. And one of the things that you have to commit yourself to, you have to do before you commit yourself to the university, is to ask them specific questions. And these would be my questions. First of all, try to get in contact with the leading professor. Yeah, if you couldn't, try to see the other professors that are there. Ask them about the subject that you want to study. So, for example, if you're studying history, musical history, ask them about their interest. Look around and Google around their name and check what kind of books have they wrote. Did they write generally stuff about opera? Then you're gonna learn a lot of stuff about opera. Yeah, I personally have had a professor in history, even though I studied composition. It was part of my studies. That was very, very interested in opera, and I dislike opera. I hate it so much. But that's what happens. I mean, you can't control everything. I know that the composition that I picked and the professor that I picked for myself for a composition was very good for me, but you might not like it if you, for example, were with the same professor that I studied with. So, going back to history, make sure that they are covering the things that you like. I feel like this is pretty simple. So, yeah, first try to reach them. If you are finding a difficulty to find them on the website or their names, any information about them, ask the information. There's typically an information or contact us page. Please make sure to open it. Ask them the name of the professor and their email, and ask them all your questions. Please ask them, like, hey, have you written certain books for me to look at while researching? You can ask them all of these type of stuff, and trust me, these things are very, very, very useful. This will give, not only it's good for you to know before you study, it's also going to give them a very good idea of who you are. Yeah, and you will look like the type of person that is very serious, that's going to put work, and that wants to actually learn. Yeah, a person who's researching, a person who's looking around, a person who's asking questions, that's a person that's reliable. Yeah, a person who doesn't come, the person who never contacts, a person who's very absent, they're going to also take a good idea of who you are before you study, before you even apply. So, this is very, very important. Please do that. Ask questions. Ask them what do they like, what do they don't like. And you'll find a pattern when we get to the next and the upcoming two subjects that's also going to have something very similar. So, the next thing that you might wish to learn is instruments. And here it gets a little more tricky because, yes, you can learn an instrument without going to a university at all. So, when do you go to a university? I would say, especially with Western music, or Western universities specifically, I would go with notation. Are you interested in notation? Are you interested in reading notes? Are you interested in trying out also new stuff, modern stuff? Because most of these universities nowadays, they have these modern sections where you start to play modern music. Some universities have older pieces. Some universities have newer pieces. If you are playing accordion, this is something I think an accordion player would already know, but are you gonna apply for a button? Do you play the button accordion or do you play the normal keyboard accordion? So you have to understand your instruments. You have to understand also what your professor will teach, what your upcoming professor will teach. So look them around. Look, if you're playing accordion, search for their name and then Google them and look around for them playing. Oh, they're playing just mainly with a keyboard accordion. Maybe they're not going to help me if I'm playing with buttons accordion, etc. And the style and the types of music they're playing. So this professor is tending to play a lot of I don't know, medieval music, very old, like the newest thing he's playing is Bach. Then that gives you an idea of what kind of pieces he will refer you to, what kind of pieces he knows, what kind of pieces he's comfortable with. This professor is playing vastly different things, and something from here and something from here and something from here. That also gives you a very good idea of what you're going to end up doing. If you are one thing that is usually unfortunately true, if you're interested in pop, if you're interested in rock, if you're interested in any of these modern popular genres, in Germany, they even have a name for them that I personally do not agree with. They are called Unterhaltungsmusik, which is entertainment music. If you have interest in that and you want to learn an instrument and you kind of want to play a little bit of like a poppy music, rock music, stuff like that, you will find it really, really hard because most of pop artists don't really notate, yeah, and the whole studying in a university has to do with reading notations, has to do with reading notes. And yes, I do understand and know that there are a lot of notes and people that are out there and they just transcribe the music, so they just listen to it and write it down. But that's not really the same as writing something on notes, and we will come to talk about that a little later in the composition subject at the end. But composition on paper, music that is notated on paper, is very, very different than music that's just made by music software or just by recording, by using a microphone. Just go for it, you know? And this is not something like, for me personally, I do not consider that any less. I do not consider that any more important. But you will struggle to find a university that teaches you these type of genres just on your instrument that you wish to play, if you are going for a bachelor degree, master's degree, or a PhD. And by the way, I think it's also important to mention that PhD in this situation is not really something to look forward to. A bachelor and master's are very important. The higher the degree, the better of a type of job you will get, and the higher amount of earnings you will make in the future from your salary. But a PhD is kind of strange in this situation because your education is very practical oriented. Yeah, you're playing on a piano, and then when you make a PhD, it's PhD is very theoretical. So you'll have to write theory. You have to write a lot of theory. Actually, it's a lot more than practicing or playing or doing anything like that. So it's always a question: should you go for a PhD or not? In unfortunately most situations you really don't need it. Some professors even actually hate it. They hate the idea that there is even an option to go for PhD. But I think that is a little silly. I feel like the idea of it existing is totally fine, but it is definitely not needed. And the idea that, for example, some universities go and search specifically for teachers that have PhD is very, very silly. Specifically when they're teaching instruments, completely unnecessary. Very, very unnecessary. Instruments don't need PhD. You need to know how to play the instrument. If you're gonna become a teacher, you just need to know how to play the instruments, how the instrument work, how tuning a piano works, for example, is something that you need to know. Yeah, I mean that's theoretical knowledge. How the hammer works. Yeah, of course that's awesome, but not to a degree of PhD. That's way too much. So that's when it comes to instruments. The third subject I would like to talk about today, and the last one, unfortunately, if you, by the way, if before I get into it, if you have any recommendations of other stuff you would like me to talk about, like for example, I don't know, a specific type of computer music production, anything like that, you can mention it in the comments, and I will make sure to make a follow-up video with these stuff. So the third subject is the one that I'm most familiar with, composition. And composition is a very, very interesting subject. First of all, composition, there have been, I feel like, three main composition degrees that you can get. There are other ones, I will mention them, but most of the time you'll find these three. The first and most popular one in universities is just normal, good old composition. And it's not really normal. It's called composition, in Germany it's called Komposition, but it is leaning towards something. It's not like a neutral form of education where it just teaches you about everything in general. It looks a little more at the Darmstadt School of Music. And just to make it very, very short, after World War II, a lot of musicians in Darmstadt, composers, they wanted to make an I guess authoritarian, you can call it, anti-authoritarian music. And they made these pieces that are very, very extreme. They look insane, and they sound insane at the time. Now they aren't that insane because there are so many composers that compose like this. Composition is a very interesting subject. However, there is a very big issue. Culture. I mean, studying composition is good for these reasons. One, they are very good at teaching you the instruments and how to understand instruments and how to understand future instruments that you're going to pass by. Yeah. So I know, for example, if I have a violin in my hand or if I have any stringed instrument that I will find ever, that if I touched it exactly in the middle, I'll get the octave. I know that. Yeah, I know that from my knowledge in composition because you understand kind of theoretically how instruments work. I know that touching a string will cause it to make an overtone. It will sound like an overtone. However, if I pressed it, I'm making it shorter. I understand how instruments work, how they function. I also understand what melody is, what harmony is. How do I create something meaningful out of only noise? Yeah, and this is something extremely important. I feel like nowadays, music generally is understood by the lyrics, by the words that are said. And in composition, something that is very wonderful is that you can make meaning out of pure music. You do not need words. You can have words, And of course, you can compose with words. It's totally normal and it happens all the time. But you don't need them. You don't need them at all. You can create meaning out of things that just literally just sounds, yeah, rhythms, harmonies, melodies, etc. And this is, to me, is very interesting. If it's to you very interesting, you might consider studying. The second important thing to consider is, of course, the negatives. The negatives are, it's just simply the sticking to the genre. The idea of that you have to kind of stick to the genre. So if you're studying composition in Germany right now, you will kind of have to, compensate a little bit, try to make music that sounds a little more of the time and space you're living in. You have to make the music sound a little more on the German side, even though you might feel like, oh, hey, I did not live under the World War II German authoritarian regime. It's, yeah, it's something you have to deal with. You either like it, you either don't like it. I will not say that you're not going to learn anything, especially if you have interest in notation. If you have an interest in writing things down and the ability to write anything down. Because at the end of the day, you can say, oh, no, I like to produce music and make it on the computer. Software is very, very limiting, very, very limiting. A VST of a piano on being played on a software is very, very limiting. Do you know how many sounds this piano can make? It can make literally an unlimited amount of sounds, unlimited amount of noises. There is unlimited possibilities on this instrument. But when you download a VST, you don't have unlimited possibilities. You have only 88 of them, only the keys that you have. And if you're lucky, there might be a T tuner so you can have even more notes, and that's it. You're done. This instrument is done. Yeah. Maybe you say, oh no, there is this other VST and there is this plugin and there's this synthesizer. Yes, and you can do many different things with these things, but you will not have the same insight as if when you're having a paper in front of you that you can write everything in specific details on. Yeah, this will make it much easier to document. So composition is very, very interesting. If you care about controlling your music to the absolute most extreme details, study composition. If you just care about music, about like, okay, I like making music, I do not really care about every single little theoretical control that I can have over the music. I just want to make something with what's available to me. You don't need to study it. You don't need to study composition. Yeah, and this is the first type of composition. The second one is film music. Film music is very authoritarian, on the other hand. Yeah. Now we went from the extremely not authoritarian type of music to absolutely extremely authoritarian. What people perceive as sad music is under a specific genre. It's under a specific feeling, under specific theories that you have to follow. You don't have the freedom to just do whatever you want. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that there are universities that are a little more tolerant to the way you want to implement your music, but I would be lying to you if I said that you have extreme freedom. What people view as happy, they view as happy. You cannot change it. Yeah, you cannot add something that maybe has a deeper meaning, because it might work, but it also might get you into trouble because, oh, the music does not sound happy enough and the scene is supposed to be happy. So you are being controlled by the way music works. Now, I know it sounds like I'm hating on it, and I do not hate it. I do not hate film music. If you want to make film music, absolutely make it. But I want to warn you about what is going to come. Yeah, the type of control that I had to deal with by making this music sound German, which I never really, experienced. I never experienced that, like, as I said, World War II Germany, but I don't really understand that, but I had to do it, but it's something that I had to do. And now, after I graduate, I can do whatever I want, I can compose however I want. And with the knowledge that I understand of these instruments, I can do whatever I want. However, when it comes to film music, when you graduate, it doesn't stop. The authoritarianism that you've lived underneath, which is kind of ironic that now universities are being authoritarian because they are forcing you to compose in a specific style. But the type of authoritarian that you have to deal with is completely different. It's related to how film music works. It's not going to stop after you graduate. Yeah? You're going to graduate, and then you're going to continue to do exactly what the film producer wants you to do. Yeah? If they want a happy scene, that's a happy scene. If they want a sad scene, it's a sad scene. There is no really complete artistic freedom. And so, yeah, so this is something to consider. You will manage to end up writing things that are a little more, I guess, harmonic. You're going to end up following the rules more than breaking them. So if you do like following the rules more than breaking them, I guess film music might suit you better. And the third type of composition that I can think of right now is traditional composition or old music composition. This type of composition could be studied in certain areas in Germany and in Europe. And this is an interesting subject. You're composing kind of like classical music. You compose similar to how Beethoven composed, or how Chopin composed, or how even older you're composing in counterpoints, or whatever old techniques were used, and you're using them exactly like how they were used in the past. This is an interesting form of studies. So if you do really like your classical music and you want to make classical music, you can do that. Again, this is very, I mean, what is the right word I was thinking of? Yeah, authoritarian. This is very authoritarian while studying and after studying, because during the studies, you haven't really learned anything about how to break rules, how to break loose of them. So after you finish, you will still not have much to go with beside making what has already been done, and the exact rules that you will learn how to compose in. So you will not know, for example, how to utilize a piano outside of being played in a normal sense. This is good if you really like classical music. If you really considering maybe making something a little different, trying to do something a little different, then you really should not consider that as an option, in my opinion. I would even not study in a university in that situation, in my opinion, because I feel like there are so many books and references to how to compose like that, and they are so detailed and very good that you really actually don't need it anymore. Like, you don't need to go to a university to study that. You can just do it at home. When it comes to film music, or when it comes to like normal composition, I guess, in quotation, I do recommend studying in a university, because they actually get into a lot of details, and there's a lot of details that you notice only in practice and while doing it in front of a professional. And there are a lot of things that you might not be able to afford, especially when it comes to film music. You might just not be able to afford all of this equipment all of a sudden, and you don't want to just buy so many things and not know how to use them, and having to learn how to use them and stuff like this. Then studying in a university would make a lot more sense, because you have all of these equipments, they're being taught to you, you're learning a lot quicker. But you are not really learning that much quicker if you just studied how to compose classical music on your own at home. So yeah, this I would definitely not recommend studying in a university. But if you really want to have something like community, a sense of community, an experienced teacher to speak to you and to give you a little bit more of an insight, then yeah, of course, it is worth it. the questions that you have to consider in regards to the subjects, in regards to composition, is to check your teacher and what type of music they make, yeah, and how they make it. So with traditional composition, check the name, search for the name of the composer, look it up, and as I said, always be active. Try to ask them questions. If you could maybe make it out of few of their classes, try to go regularly. Go always. This is a very good sign. This looks like you're very interested. If they ask questions, try to answer. By the way, this is one of the things that I've noticed in students. They get very insecure and they don't want to answer wrong. Please answer wrong. This is giving the teacher a better idea that you want to engage with the subject. Um, so yeah. So yeah, I lost my train of thought, but you get what I mean, hopefully. And I hope this video was helpful. As I said, if you have any other recommendations, any other subjects that you would like me to mention and talk about, you can feel free to send me a message, or I mean, just write a comment. I will read all comments, and please like and subscribe for future, more exciting even videos, uh, and things that I really, really am passionate to share with you. Bye bye.